Fingers crossed. Last week, we're further than we were last week. Last week was just
a blank. Good.
Yeah, just a blank screen. Oh, look at that. All right. Okay, we've got a few minutes, but we can just keep chatting.
Yeah, for sure.
Hello. I know we've got people there, but we're just here today. We're further than we were last week. Last week was just.
Oh, that sounds really weird.
Yep, we're going to have a bit of an echo here. Okay. Good morning, everybody. We're just sitting tight and give us a few minutes to everybody get on, but we made it live this week, which is awesome.
Just keep chatting.
And I think there she is. I know we've got people there, but we're just here today. Okay. All right, so we got that. I'm going to turn my Facebook off on my computer because it's just really, really weird. Oh, what were we talking about before we get going here? We were talking about how people were being more mindful, weren't we?
Lodge my camera, but it's awkward because, that might work for a little bit.
Your arms are going to get really sore.
I know. No, I just lodged it, so this might work for a bit.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, never mind.
Oh, the joys of technology.
Let's see what we can do here. I'd love to be able to lodge, but we just don't know how that's going to. We'll try it.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, it's 11 o'clock. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our fourth Humanity Needs the Horses interviews from the field. I have to say that interviews from the field was during a discussion that came up with a during discussion with my daughter, and she said that, and that's what we're going to call it. So I am with the lovely Fotini Chandrika today, and one of her horses is holding space. I would say one horse is Penny is holding space, and you've been moving around too, haven't you?
Yes.
It hasn't, nothing. That's great. So welcome. Humanity, I was going to talk today a bit at the beginning here about Humanity Needs the Horses and where that came from. I was posting pictures with phrases from past authors in our equine leadership magazines, and it's sort of tied in that, wow, like all of these quotes, all of them are so prevalent in what we're going through now and the times right now, and tying that in with a documentary that I had the inkling to, and I still do, to develop as an evolution of equine leadership. But I also had the thought of at one point we would do a podcast, and then this just all fell into place, and Humanity Needs the Horses just started as a hashtag, and it grew from that. And it's like, well, wait a minute, why don't we bring everybody to the field? And we did. So that's where it came from. And let's get our show started here. And we've got this, I don't know how you guys see this on Facebook, but we've got Fotini up on live full screen here so you can enjoy her horses as well. So Fotini, could you introduce yourselves and your horses to us?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Thank you so much, first of all, for inviting us here. It's always a pleasure to bring people out to the field, and whether it's in person or now, seeing the power and feeling the power of inviting people out virtually, it's always really a pleasure and a privilege to have that opportunity. So thanks for that, first of all, and thanks for those who are tuned in. I can't see, unfortunately, on my screen who's here. But thank you. Thanks for being here. So I'm Fotini Chandrika from the Big Red Barn, and also the partner to these amazing horses who I'll introduce you to in a moment. And they are also my partners in developing a model or modality called Horse Wisdom Yoga. So I'm going to just take you around to see the horses here. This is Penny. She's really relaxed right now. I don't know if you can hear her breathing, but maybe inviting us to a nice deep breath. And I don't know how much you can see here. I don't want to walk too much while we're on video, but there's 3 more horses to the herd, making a total of 4. They're all different in ages, breeds. we never really focused much on that when the horses found us, but we rather really listened to the horses, and in my own practice, my yoga practice and meditation, and just listening to who was meant to be here, and how they found us, and just being really the listener. And that's sort of how our practice has evolved, now almost 10 years later together as partners. And it just keeps evolving by paying attention and listening to the horses, and putting my own ego and my own intentions sometimes aside to be able to hear what their intentions are and what they're trying to say. So that's really become what my practice is about, is really listening to the horses, and what they're trying to say, not only in the day-to-day, caregiving, but also to humanity as a whole, and as a bigger picture. What really is it that they're here to tell us, and what is it that they're here to teach us? And that's been the focus of, over a decade of my personal studies with horses.
Perfect. Wow. It's beautiful. What else do you do on the farm there, as far as I know? You've got a lovely forest. Is there anything else you incorporate into your work that you have on your land there? I know you have some other animals. Oops. I think we've got some.
Well,
sorry, there you are. You're back.
Okay.
Sorry, we lost you there. Anything
That's
else
okay.
that you have on the land there, or anything else that you do? I know you're taking some courses. I know you have a beautiful forest there. You have some other animals.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have some hens, so some happy hens we call them, and they kind of roam free range around here, offering us delicious eggs, and we're offering them lots of love and lots of space. We have a very natural way of keeping our hens as well, but I know this is more about the horses today, so we won't get into that. But if anyone's ever interested in hearing about that, maybe we'll have to do a happy hen podcast. We also have the beautiful forest. We call it the Healing Forest Path. It's about 2 or 3 acres of trails that we've groomed, and just the trails were kind of here when we got here, but we've given them some love and care to help them be a clearer path to walk. And in the forest, there are a mix of soft and hardwood trees, and some very special trees that really stand out to us. So one of them is the yoni tree, which is like a divine feminine, and it's very obvious that she's representing the womb space. And there are a few really special trees that really, I thought when it was kind of my journey walking through the forest and journaling and connecting with the trees, I didn't realize how much they would speak a lot of the same medicine to our clients that were coming through. So that became really fascinating, just observing like my experience, and then opening it up for others to experience, and then seeing how the same trees would resonate in a very same or similar medicine with others. So that's kind of neat. And I find the same thing with the horses. Like when people come here, it's almost like each horse sort of has embodied this archetype that they bring forth, again, on my personal journey with them, but then also when we've opened up to clients, having the clients experience a very similar medicine from each horse. So it's been a real eye-opener to our medicines as humans, because we oftentimes are hesitant or doubting what we're here for, and what our medicines are, what are our gifts, what are we here to share. And when I've been observing and spending time with the horses and the trees and the birds, and realizing their medicine, she's good. Realizing their medicines, and how they don't doubt or question what they're here for. Like, it's very clear, and they know, and there's no question about it. So it's interesting that we are constantly in doubt of ourselves, when I know that each one of you and each one of us knows what we're here for. What are we here to offer the world?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have to say that for the folks that are listening here, and yourself, I think we all bring an energy to this space, and congratulations on the energy that you're bringing today for everybody that's listening, because Penny certainly wouldn't be as relaxed as she is, if any of us were bringing that. So I think
So
that's
true.
something to everybody here, that everybody's taking those deep breaths and enjoying the time together. So thank you, Penny,
Absolutely.
for showing us that. So one thing that Equine Leadership, Humanity Needs the Horses, really believes is that that the horses living as close to nature as possible is a model for all of us to learn from. And my question here is, how do you do that? How do you help them be as close to nature as possible? And then what are the challenges within that? Because we spoke the other night a bit of it. Like, what are some of the challenges that you face in trying to keep them as close to nature as possible?
Well, that's a great question, and a big part of our journey here as caregivers to the horses. I just want to be mindful here because I don't want to get a hoof in the back.
Of course.
Are you good? Are you getting up? All right, you're good. So one of the things that we do is we have the horses outside 24/7. So the horses live outside 24/7. They're never brought into a barn. I won't say never, because there are times they come in for feeding or whatnot, but I'll show you our setup in a moment, how we try to keep even that as close to nature as possible. So they're outside 24/7. We don't blanket the horses at all. There's one horse that we have, the Arabian. Her name's Isa. She's just coming up. She was having a little lay down. How did you know I was going to talk about you? Hi. Hi. Here she comes here. I don't know if you can see her there.
Yep, we can see her. Perfect view.
So she, in the winter, she's okay, even if it's like -40. But as soon as it's wet, like as soon as it's like a wet snow or a rain, she needs a blanket. So I learned that just from watching her, like just from observing her, and I could see very clearly that when she was getting wet, her energy would change significantly. She'd put her head down, her flank would be a little bit shaky, and I said, okay, this horse needs a blanket when it's wet. But all the other ones, they grow a nice thick furry coat. They look like bisons. And they're very furry and very warm. And I check them. Obviously, I live every window in my home. I live not far from this this setup here, just right there. And every window of our home faces the horses. So I'm watching them all the time and picking up on their energies and even watching their body language and whatnot, to see to make sure that I'm doing the best that I can to give them that natural way of life. So those are a couple of things. So blankets, no blankets unless absolutely necessary, to give them that opportunity to grow that furry winter coat and to adapt to their environment, which they're so good at. Oh my gosh, they're all coming now.
I'm talking about them.
That's nice.
Yep.
So what other things do we do here? Well, we don't weed eat. So we allow the wild plants and the weeds and the wild herbs to grow all around the paddock. So they can pick and choose what they want to forage for themselves. So that's a good thing. And we have them in a mixed herd, males and females, geldings and mares together, living, through their challenges and letting them work things out. Obviously, keeping an eye, making sure they're safe, but letting them work things out when the they have the battle of the sexes, right? So, but it, I feel like it's really important that they have that opportunity to mingle with the other gender, because it is part of what they naturally would do in the wild, right? So, giving them that opportunity to do that.
Excellent. And you talked a bit about your stable there. How is that?
Yeah.
How does that
Can I show you?
Of course. Take us with you.
Let's go. We're going on a field trip, folks.
There we go.
Hi. Hi, friend.
Yeah. There. With the clouds behind. Oh, that's a beautiful shot.
He is.
Someone take a picture of that.
He is a very wise elder. He's about 30 years old. All right. He hates pictures. All right. So this is our little setup. It's an outdoor shed row. So everybody's got a stall, and it's right out here in the field. So it's, they're not brought in anywhere. They're just sort of here, and they've all got windows and whatnot. We also have learned, even with this setup, that it still pushes the limits of natural, because Isa really doesn't like to go in very much. So we have to give her a lot of free choice. Like, there will be days when she's comfortable going in, and that's fine. And then there's days when she's absolutely adamant that she's not going in, because it's a little bit windy, or because the neighbors are out cutting their grass, or for whatever reason. If she doesn't have like a 360 view, which is, their natural way, if she doesn't have that 360-degree view, and be able to, make that full turn to see, then she gets really uncomfortable if it's, like I said, compromised. Her senses are compromised in any way, like if it's windy or raining or whatever.
For sure.
So we pay attention, to those things, and learn about each horse, and that's part of yoga. Is we call it svadhyaya, which means like studying the self, and studying, what herbs are working for you and what herbs aren't. So my svadhyaya practice has moved out to the field with each one of these horses, and like really paying attention to what's working for them and what's not working for them. And it's been such a lifelong devotion. Like it's been, over a decade, but I see it being much, much longer, because the learning doesn't end. And I think that's one of the commitments we make when we make the commitment to be, horse stewards and caregivers. It's just a decision that we make, is that we will devote ourselves to learning, and not just about the horses, but about ourselves. And that's also a big part of the practice, because, the horse is picking up our energy constantly. So if we're not taking care of ourselves, and we're not of sound mind, how can we possibly put that expectation onto our horses?
Absolutely. So what are some of the challenges that you face with, with trying to be as close to nature as possible? But, what are some of the challenges you face doing that?
I think some of the challenges, the biggest challenge for me is knowing that it's never going to be natural. And that's a challenge for me, because in my vision, in my third eye, my Ajna chakra, growing up and seeing the horses there, because I was a city girl, so I wasn't around horses, but I saw horses there in my mind's eye, and I saw them running free, and I saw their manes and tails running, blowing in the breeze. And I saw them with this freedom. And we're on 10 acres here. There's 4 horses, so that's good. They've got the land to themselves. Don't plan on having any more. You never know who finds us, but we feel complete. But even, on these large pastures, it still feels like, there's a sense of confinement there. Again, having said that, the horses have taught me and reassured me that confinement, and this is a good quarantine message, confinement is really a state of mind and a state of soul. And they've taught me that freedom comes from a spiritual freedom, not necessarily I have a lot of space freedom, right? So yeah, and horses have learned to adapt to that, right? And we're learning that as humans as well, that we have to adapt to that idea that the freedom is going to have to come from within, because we may not necessarily ever experience full freedom on the external, societies and conditions. So that freedom really has to be found inside. And I think the horses have, in their wisdom, come to realize that themselves, that if they're ever going to be feeling content, we call santosha in yoga, if they're ever going to feel that, they're going to have to come to terms with that freedom inside. But nonetheless, the challenges are, yes, number one, not being able to give them, those hundreds and hundreds of acres that I saw myself being, giving them to be free and to run free. The other challenge is, they can't necessarily choose their herd mates. Like, I have 2 mares here that have never had babies, and have never had foals. And I know they tell me stories of longing to have foals. And, we're not really in a position to bring foals onto our farm. And, so things like that, Linda, really are a challenge for me to breathe through, because I want to give them everything to be natural. And just like my family and me, I'm a natural health practitioner. It's what I do. And it's what I want for every being, not just the horses and the chickens and the humans, like every being on this planet. It's what, what I want for everybody is to have that natural freedom.
Absolutely.
But they've taught us a lot about that. And their wisdom has taught me a lot about like that we can find contentment and harmony and peace and freedom in our souls and in our spirits, and not have to look at how many acres we have. Do you know what I mean? Like they can be free even in a very small field. They can be free when they're in a conducive, environment.
For sure. Absolutely. Excellent. Thank you so much for that. So let's move on to sort of the voice and the wisdom of the horse and how you share that. I know you do a number of things there, and I know when I've come out there or when we're doing yoga, it's you bring the horses into that. So maybe share first, what are the things that you do out there? What are the modalities that you do?
Sure. So we practice horse wisdom yoga. I have been trained in a few different modalities, including equine facilitated learning, and obviously yoga, thousands of hours of yoga teacher training, as well as Ayurveda, which is herbal. It's like the sister science of yoga. So bringing all of that together, also Reiki, so like energy medicine and energy healing. Which I always, think of Reiki as like love, and you can't really train yourself in love, but what you can do is start to let go of all of those things that hold you back from being who you really are. And that is pure love. So I've done a lot of work in that area, just peeling back the layers of my experiences and allowing myself to come home to that place of pure love and helping others do the same. And the horses they are pure love. They are, and I'm sure all of you agree with me on that one. They are pure love, and they are really, and just as I say that, our wise elders stepping forth here, yes, he is like, they are all just pure love. So we practice a lot of different things, Linda. We have our yoga classes and our Reiki trainings. And with the horses, we offer Horse Wisdom Yoga Certified Teacher Training. So we offer a 5-day program with a 6-month practicum where people come out and learn about how horses are living yoga. And I'm not sure how interested or I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but like how much, you all have been around yoga or heard about yoga, but yoga is oftentimes when we think of the word yoga, we see like poses, right? Standing on our heads and stuff like that. But yoga is actually an 8-limbed practice. So it's actually not about the poses at all. The poses, and when I teach my yoga teacher training, that's one of the things that, I have learned is that, or one of the things I teach my students is that yoga, the postures are 1/8 of the practice. So when we say 8-limbed practice, you can imagine there's 7 other limbs to that practice that have nothing to do with moving your body. So the first part of that is called yamas and niyamas, and these are the ethics and observances of yoga. And it's kind of like in Christianity, it's kind of like the 10 Commandments. And it's just interesting going through those and seeing how the horses are living each one of those ethics and observances. It's part of their way of life. So that was one of the first kind of aha moments. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the way of the horse. Like, this is the way of the horse. And then just kind of expanding on that, and then ultimately, putting together the program, Horse Wisdom Yoga, and offering the sessions with people. I'm just going to find a place to sit, Linda, because my arm's getting a little tired trying to hold my phone.
That would be logical.
Go? I want to go somewhere I can try to lodge this.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe I'll try over here.
Brilliant. While you're finding that spot, I'd like, how are you adjusting your horse? If we go back to specifically to the horse work, how are you adjusting your horse sessions at this time?
Oh, well, we're doing sessions virtually.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one this afternoon, basically just coming out to the field, much like we're doing now, but tapping into that intuitive space and working with the horses. So just seeing kind of who steps up. And I also work with some like cards and stuff. So I'll put the cards out in the field and see if a horse chooses a card.
Sure.
I also have training in Vedic counseling. So it's like yoga coaching kind of.
Yeah.
And so we go through like coaching together, and then, you know, just see sort of what's happening with the horses while we're doing that. And a lot of it is really, you know, a lot of it is also holding space, right? And allowing
Sure.
the person to be heard. And then from there, just seeing what nature brings. Like, you know, you can hear the
Nice.
crows right now, you know, so you would just kind of just pay attention and listen to what nature is bringing to the space, because we're all interconnected, right?
Of
So it's
course.
just sort of paying attention to that.
And I think you and I were chatting about this the other day, and how it actually, people almost use their intuition more.
Yeah.
It sort of created another level of that connection that we maybe didn't know we had.
You know, I'll be honest with you, I am awestruck by, so I'm not a real techie person. Like I have just enough experience to get by, like on Zoom and on like I do a newsletter and whatnot, but I'm really old school. I still use my like paper agenda, and everything is written down. I like to read books that are on paper, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I am awestruck at the power of the virtual field. I participated in a couple of, not just our own sessions, but actually as the participant in a couple of experiences. And I came out here for the experiences, and I was hanging out with the horses while I was a part of the experiences. And I was awestruck at the field of connection between the other person's herd and our herd, and what was happening. And it was just like incredible. So I'm a newfound believer in virtual.
I think we all are.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
the thing is, it's funny because in Reiki, like we do a lot of distant work. So we do a lot of like distant communication, distant healing. So I know that there's like a field, definitely a field of coherence that happens when we open ourselves up, like to make that heart connection. But it's really neat when you actually are like coming on like to something like this and feeling the connection. So what's interesting is in my Reiki, like if someone asks me to send Reiki, or you know, someone's having something going on with their horse and they want me to kind of tap in and see what I pick up intuitively, I always need either a photo or like the name of the horse, the location, because it really helps me to sort of tune in to the energy. And it's interesting because right now, not knowing who's here, not knowing, because I can't see like who's watching or who's here. It's interesting, like not being able to really make that connection. Like I feel the presence of the people who are with us, but because I can't see like the name or the profile picture or anything to sort of get the feels a little bit more. So so those things, when it comes to the virtual connections, I find are really important, to be able to sort of put out the feelers and be able to make those connections a little bit deeper, is like things like knowing the person's name or where they're tuning in from, or you know, the person's photo, like, or the horse, you know, for that matter. So anyway, that's just a little tidbit on virtual work.
Absolutely. No, it's great. It's we're all being asked to do things a little differently, and it almost sounds like we're being asked to connect like the horses connect anyway. We're asking, you know, the nature and what our situation now, they're asking us like to be more horse-like.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. So someone just did a big snort from the herd right now.
There we go.
That. Yeah. Definitely. Oh, did you hear that? I guess they made it louder this time.
Did they? We're talking. Listen to us. So we're talking about.
There's another one.
One more?
It's all, every single one except Penny. She's still laying down, but every single one gave us a big snort then.
Big snort there. There you go. You got this, people. So about holding, we talked about holding space. How do you create that space there for, and let's say even not in a virtual way, like we take the virtual out of it, but how do you create that space for the horses to work with the humans? Like, how do you create that space for that horse human connection to happen? And in turn, you know, it helps the humans. But my very first one of these, I did I was talking with Debbie LaHaye, and I asked her about horses and humans, and she said, forget the humans. I'm going to create the space for the horses. The humans will, they'll come into that space, but the most important things is creating that space for the horses. So
very wise words were spoken
yes,
there, because
I was given a lesson there very quickly.
yeah, very wise words spoken. Because that's really ultimately the most important thing when bringing people into the space of the horses, is that the horses feel safe and that the horses feel like they're having the space held for them. So I call it the 80-20. So the 80-20 rule, or the 80-20 ratio in our practice, is 80% of my energy is with these horses and connecting with these horses, and just working on our relationships and caring for them the best that I can. And the 20% is seeing people, right? So that's my little 80-20. And with the horses, a couple of things that we have learned along the way are, number one, the amount of people. So we have now a maximum of 4 people coming to the horses. So if we're ever doing group work, trainings, anything like that, it's a maximum of 4 people. It's just, the horses have shown me what it looks like when we have had 8 people. And on a farm where, knock on wood, we have very few visits from the vet, very few injuries and things like that. When I did have a group training with 8 people, one of my healthiest horses had a major injury and had to be like quarantined and everything from the rest of the herd. And it was just, I knew it was like his way of saying, like, it's too much. And even I felt it was too much, like as an empath and as a highly sensitive person, like I was struggling a little bit with a large group of 8 people. So we are at 4 people now as a maximum, and it's working wonderfully. Everybody is feeling safe, humans and horses, or I should say horses and humans, feeling safe with that number. So 4 people.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Another thing that helps me keep the horses safe is paying attention to them. So never forcing anybody to step forward and work with people.
Okay.
If a horse isn't feeling well, or if one of the mares are, cycling and they're just like, they don't want to interact, then they don't. And they make it really obvious, like they'll just walk away, or just, have their back turned and not be interested at all. And we use that when working with the humans, we use that as a learning opportunity, like feeling the energy of like the willingness of connection. And then kind of you find that one horse, it's like, nope. And you feel that shift. Yeah. Where, you're feeling the invitation from the other horses, then all of a sudden there's a horse where there's no invitation. So learning that about energy is really important when we're working with other people, whether on corporate teams or in our homes as families, in dynamic and in relationship with others, knowing when it's a no that day,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
And feeling that energy and saying, hey, cool, I'll give you your space. And so, keeping the horses safe is really about also giving them what they need. So giving them time off, like over the summer, with trainings and whatnot. Like, so we'll do a 5-day training with 4 people, and then they'll have a week off where I am very limited in my interaction with them. Yeah. So they just get time to like breathe, nice. And like, like they just not be around humans, other than of course, like making sure everybody's good, but not asking them for anything. Just hang out, be yourselves, and take that time. Sure. So yeah, and then from sessions, like private sessions, we do 1 a day. Sometimes 2, it depends. If it's a child, if the second one, I work with a lot of children, if the second one's a child, the horses don't seem to mind, because I feel like children come with a lot of a lighter kind of energy. So I can do 2 if it's a child, but 2 adults in one day, I do just 1 adult session a day. So we do a maximum of 5 sessions a week, private sessions, and that's not like per horse, that's like in total for me and the horses, 5 sessions a week. So we have learned, again, through that Svadhyaya practice of really studying myself and the horses and what's going to work for us as partners, those numbers that come through about like, okay, that's too much, or whatever. So I think that's a big part of safety as well.
Absolutely. So how does that translate for the humans?
Well, because the horses are happier, they're more willing to connect and engage in the practice, and they're actually excited when they have a session. So the humans are safer and happier because they're working with horses that are really well cared for and considered. Yeah. So another thing we do for the safety of the humans and horses, and I'm just going to move so I can show you. We have this little space set up where when people come in, rather than just sort of bringing their energy right into the space of the horses, and on the flip side of that, rather than having the horses bring their energy right into the humans, we have this little safe space here set up with these ropes. Can you see that there?
Yep. Nice.
So we always start the sessions in there.
Okay.
So it gives the horses an opportunity to kind of survey the people. And it gives the people an opportunity to kind of survey the horses, and it gives everybody enough space for their minds and bodies to be present before moving forward with anything else.
For sure. And that's exactly what a boundary is. That mind and the body to be present.
Yes, exactly. And it's a clear, it's a clear boundary without being a wall, right?
Exactly.
We used to have a round pen. We ended up getting rid of it. I just felt like the horses were feeling like more confined in there, and I didn't like them feeling like that. So we got rid of the round pen. There's always hay available. So even in sessions, there's always food available. And if I know a lot of times, because I've been, studying horses and working with different people in different barns, and taking other, courses as well, lots of other courses. Gosh. But anyways, noticing that, there's no food, right? So like the horse goes into the round pen, there's sand and there's no food or water, right? So it's almost like the horse, given that they're herd animals, like they're almost connecting sometimes by default, right? So, we want connections to be genuine and to be like that moment of, truth for humans and horses, and not something that is manufactured.
Absolutely. No, that's well said. So in your article in this year's Equine Leadership magazine, your Equine-embody article, you spoke of your story, and if you're willing to share your story, and sharing maybe a story of a client that's come to you and maybe had a aha moment, or sort of one that comes to mind of wow, that was a really strong, powerful moment. And I'm sure there's many of them in the list, but or even your story, however you'd like to share that. We'd love to hear.
All right. My journey, well, it's a long story. Malachi's licking and chewing. I know he understands because his is a long story too. Let's start with saying that I didn't grow up around horses. So I grew up in the city. I was an animal lover from a really young age, came from a very dysfunctional home, a lot of poverty. My parents were really young, doing the best that they could, but it just, in hindsight, like looking at it as a mom now, I'm just like, whoa, but no judgment there. I know they're doing the best they could. But it was really tough, and horses and animals in general became like my friends, because I struggled so much with humans and just having been hurt so much by humans. So the journey of learning how to love and be loved started with animals. And fast forward to age 15, I moved out. I lived on my own from 15, and it was a real struggle. So it was like school all day, and I was that kid who, like, I'd go up to the teacher and I'd be like, okay, listen, I got to go grocery shopping and then I got to go to work. So is it possible you could just give me the homework and I could go, and I'd hop on my bike and I'd zip to my apartment and then I'd zip to work. And it was I call that part of my life the race. It was just like zip trying to get it all done. And anyway, in between where I was living in renting a room, in between that room and my work, I discovered this little farm, and it was called Riverdale Farm. Some of y'all might have even heard of it. It's on Broadview, just north of Queen. So I found this near the Don Valley Jail.
That's in Toronto for folks that aren't in Canada.
Yes, Toronto. Yes, thank you. Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Wow, that's exciting that we've got people from everywhere here. Thank you. So anyway, there was this little farm. So I started to go to this farm because, again, as I mentioned, animals were everything to me. So I started going to this farm, and there was two big Clydesdale horses there, and they were in a very small little pen. They also had a barn, and I started sitting, much like I'm sitting right now, and they would have their noses coming over the fence and picking at my hair or my hat or whatever I had going on, and I'd be reading a lot of books. I've been a reader for many, many, many years. Since childhood, reading actually was my saving grace, I think, really through those really hard times, and still is. Oh, she's up. Hi. Yeah, I hear you. So anyway, I would read and they would come. So this became like a ritual. I'd have to stop and see them, even if it was like 5 minutes. I was like, okay, I just got to go see the horses. And then fast forward some more. Now, I've you like this part of the story? I finished high school. I did end up graduating after 9 high schools with honors. So graduated high school, made it to that part. Then I finished college as a law clerk and started working at a law firm. So things were looking up now. I had moved out of having rooms. Now I was in an apartment, ended up buying my first house in my early 20s. And anyway, so working in a law firm, things are getting better now, financially stable, things are looking up. And I decide, okay, I've got to explore this calling with the horses. Like I've got to figure out what it is about horses that I've been drawn to my entire life. And it was always this vision in my third eye. And it was of the horses running, like I mentioned earlier, running with their hair and tails blowing and just being free together in bands or herds. And so I started by getting a job at a thoroughbred farm. So here I was working all week at a law firm. And then I'd get up on the weekends at 5 a.m. to go work at the thoroughbred farm. And it was the saddest thing that I ever experienced with animals. Yeah. Let's just take a deep breath for these horses. And Penny's having a big poop. I hear you, big release, because it just was very, very sad. It was very clinical. It was all about money. Basically, like the stallions had this like fireproof area, so that if there was ever a fire, the stallions would get protected right away. And the mares and foals had no protection. I had to wear like gloves, masks, just like we're doing right now. I had to wear gloves, masks. I had to have shoe covers to go into the stalls with the mares and foals. It was really sad, really, really sad. So anyway, that did not last long, as you can imagine, because it was number one strike off my list. I was like, that's not where I'm meant to be. That's not where I'm meant to be. So anyway, journey went on, tried Western riding, tried dressage, tried this and that. No, that didn't work. That was a good, maybe 1 year of kind of trying different kinds of riding. That wasn't working. In 2011, I had my dog, and she, my little Yorkie, she passed away now at 15. She was, we were going away somewhere or something, and we asked the vet assistant at my veterinary clinic. She was like, oh yeah, I do dog boarding at my farm. I said, oh, perfect. She knows you already and whatever. So she took the dog for the weekend while we went away, and she had horses. So it was like, oh my gosh. And it was like, there was no riding really happening. Like she was just, a single woman, and she had, probably now looking back, way too many horses but, for a small piece of land. But anyway, no judgment. I believe we're all doing the very best we can with what we know. But she had about 15 or 16 horses on like 8 acres. And so anyway, she had all these horses, and I was in heaven. And she says, well, this one is in foal. She's expecting a foal in a couple of months. I said, oh, no way. I've always wanted to witness something like that, and just the magic and the miracle. So April 1st, 2011, my son is now about 2.5 years old. We get a call that Misty, which is the mom's name, is in foal, and that she's foaling. And I said, oh my goodness. So anyway, we rush to the barn, and we get to see Spirit, who is with us right now, April 1st, 2011, April Fool's Day. And boy, has it been fun with him. He's been a great teacher of everything, all things horse. Anyway, April 1st, 2011, he was born. and we started to go visit him, and I started to handle him and do things with him. And my son would run along the fence line, and they'd run along the fence line together. And it was about 6 months later that we were visiting him. She said, "You come anytime, you can visit him, no problem." So I would help out a little bit and go visit him. And anyway, it was about 6 months later, I went to visit him, and there was someone in the round pen with him, and they were doing some stuff with him that didn't feel right. And I thought, oh my gosh, I was like, they're going to buy him. They're going to buy him. And I was not ready for a horse. Like, I mean, I loved horses and fascinated with them, but I'm not, I never was brought up around horses. I didn't have much experience. And here's this young, spunky boy. And all of a sudden he's in the round pen with these people, and I could tell that they're interested in him. And so I called her, a couple of days later. I said, how's Spirit doing? And his name was Snickers at the time, and still is to my son. But I said, how's Snickers doing? And we've got a couple. They're interested in buying him. They've been coming to see him. I said, oh, wow, that's exciting. And, in my heart, I'm like, oh my gosh, this can't be happening. Anyway, we were watching Dreamer, the movie Dreamer. This is like a couple of days later, and we're laying on the couch, and my son's there and curled up on my chest. And he says, Mama, when are we going to get our own horse? And he says, when are we going to get our own horse? And I feel like tearing up when I tell this story. When are we getting our own horse? He says, name Snickers. And I looked at him, and it was like 9:30 at night. And I'm like, and I look at my husband, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I rushed to the phone, despite it being like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And I'm like, look, I think we need to adopt Snickers. And she's like, I was waiting for your call.
She knew.
So that was almost 10 years ago. And it's been quite a journey, because we didn't have the fencing and everything set up for him to come home here. We didn't have any other horses. So he started the boarding life. And that was another journey, because everybody would call me the crazy horse lady, because they're like, well, what are you going to do with him?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with him? And I was like, well, what do you mean? What am I going to do with him? Like, he's my pony, like, and my son would come, my husband, we would just brush him and just hang out with him and go for little walks in the arena. And, everybody was like pressuring us, like, when are you going to start him? When are you going to, we should do this. We should start getting used to the saddle. We should start. I said, well, I don't know that he's ever going to be ridden. Like, well, what do you mean? What do you have a horse for then? So it was just interesting at that point to kind of see and hear what people's idea of caring for horses was like. People having to have some kind of a goal, some kind of a reason that had to satisfy their dollar. Like, well, this horse is costing you X amount of dollars. Like, what are you going to do with him? And it just never was like that with him. Like, he was just the teacher, and he's been the teacher ever since. In 2012, I discovered Horse Spirit Connections in Tottenham, Ontario. Started to learn from them, took a couple of workshops, ended up ultimately taking their longer program, their 6-month program in equine facilitated learning. I did that one in 2015. By that time, had 3 horses. And all the stories I could tell about how they all found us, but I know we'll be probably way past
dinner time.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, each one found us very serendipitously. But I'm going to tell the story of Isa quickly and how she found us, because I was actually in the equine facilitated learning program, and I was also taking another program in expressive arts therapy. And the school where I was taking the program was called ISIS. And now the name has been changed to the Create Institute because of the terrorist association, ISIS. So anyway, the school was called ISIS. I was in the expressive arts program. I felt like it was really that like big last layer. I mean, we're always healing, but it was like the big layer of like my past, like the deep stuff. And so anyway, I was taking that program, and all of a sudden I see this white horse. And I had always said to my family, I was like, there's one more horse out there. The number is 4. The number is 4. I said, it's a white horse. And when that horse arrives, the horse is telling me that I'm healed. And she showed up. I see this white horse. I don't even know how I found her. She on my Facebook scroll or something. And I clicked on it, and I called the owner. I started to talk with the caregiver at the time. And I said, what is her name? Because we were talking about her for like back and forth emails and whatnot. And I just still didn't know her name. And finally she says her name is Isis. I said, what? I'm at school right now. I was already feeling like that expressive arts program was kind of like a big release for me of a lot of past trauma. Yeah. And then there's the white horse and her name is the same as the school. Anyway, so she's here obviously now too. We have changed her name to Isa, which she likes. Yeah. And yeah.
Nice. Beautiful stories and serendipitous, eh? It just,
oh my goodness. Like, yep. Just being open to paying attention, and like allowing. I don't know if you've ever read the book by Michael Singer, Surrender Experiment.
No, I haven't done that one.
Well, if any of you are interested, make a note of that book, because it is all about surrendering and allowing life to happen for you, not to you, right?
Absolutely. And it's I'm just writing that down. I will put that up for everybody.
Awesome.
I can't spell experiment, but there we go. And I was thinking the other day, and I think horses have really taught me this, is just to trust the path. Like you talked about the school that you had gone to, not knowing that the horse would show up, and how that we take a step. We don't know where that step's going to lead, but we trust that, that'll take the next step and the next step, and who knows where it'll go and what wonderful things will happen along the way, and trusting that we're in the right place at the right time. And that story certainly shows it in ACEs. So thank you for sharing all of that. So let's get to the bigger picture. We always like to sort of wrap up our conversations with the bigger picture. And again, at Equine Leadership, we really believe the horses give us a model of living that really can create a brighter future for us personally, but for humanity too. So I guess maybe can you speak to that a little bit? What are your thoughts around that, and what is that model, and what are they teaching us?
When I look out at the horses now and just sitting here on the earth and with all of you and just being here in this moment, I really feel like the horse's message is really to follow your bliss, and trust your path, and like with the horses, there's been a lot of fear I've had to face, a lot of fear. There's been a lot of huge steps outside of my comfort zone that I've had to take if I'm going to continue this journey with the horses. And I just keep feeling that bliss. And I just keep feeling that bliss when I'm here sitting with them in the field, and when I watch the magic between them and the clients, and just feel the healing that's happening for humanity as a whole, just by listening and paying attention to the horses and allowing them to reflect back where we're at as humans. Following your bliss, like we're all here for a purpose. We all have a gift and a reason, and follow that and really take those steps one at a time. I think it's Jim Rohn that says that you're going to take the steps anyway, right? Like every day you wake up, you take steps for something. So why not allow those steps to be towards your dreams and towards your visions and your bliss?
For sure. Yeah. So what's the model you see them living? If you could maybe take two or three, if you look at them every day as you see them, what's that model of living? Like, how are they living? What are the, say, top three, if you were to pick top three things of that model that they live in every day? What do you see?
I see presence.
Yeah.
I feel compromise.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like they understand compromise in relationship, I'm just listening to them. I want to.
Yeah. We're here for their voices.
Yeah.
And yours.
Surrender. Surrender. We call that in yoga Ishvara Pranidhana. And what it means is not surrender as in throw in the white flag and surrender, No, it's a different kind of surrender. It's surrendering to the divine grace. It's surrendering to knowing that there's more. It's not just what we've been conditioned to believe. It's not just what society tells us. There's a higher truth, and the horses surrender to that higher truth, and they're teaching us how to do that too.
For sure, for sure. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
listening to
you.
them. Thank you to them for giving that. Giving that. So we always finish with the bigger picture, and then we ask for a call to action from yourself and your herd. If you were to give humanity in the days that we're in now and the time we're in now, which is truly unique, and I heard every generation has a defining moment in when, you know, in their time alive, whether it's 9/11, whether it's Kennedy, you know, like every generation has a defining moment. And we know that, you know, generations now, this is this is a defining moment, and we will always remember this. And what might be a call to action? We have one call to action for humanity right now. You've already got it. I can see it.
Yeah, I can feel it. I'm just watching the horses. It's Isa actually that's really connecting with us right now, and it's return to the earth.
Okay.
Return to the earth. Return to the earth's medicines. You know, return to the earth's wisdom. Honor the earth. Like, wake up. You know, awakening outside of just what we're told. You know, think about what we're told to do with horses. We're told to put them in stalls that are like 12 by 12, and we're told that they're safer in there in a storm than being out in the storm. We're told that, so we do it, and that equates to being 100-pound human being in like a 1.2 by 1.2 foot closet all night long.
Yeah.
You know, like we got to step outside of what we're told and return to the medicine and the wisdom of the earth, and start to use our intuition and our own wisdom, and believe in that wisdom, and know and trust that that wisdom is not going to take us in the wrong direction. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I am writing all this down, and I always put it in when we'll post the video.
Oh,
So
cool.
any final comments? We are at the top of the hour. We thank you so much for taking the time to be with us on our 4th interview. I am beyond blessed to be able to do these, and to be able to enjoy you and your herds, you know, once a week. And I hope our listeners and our viewers feel the same. And any final comment?
You know what? I would love to take the last couple of moments to just sort of have a little meditation.
Oh, that's a good idea.
If that's something that you're cool with.
Absolutely.
I brought a little poem from my poetry book. I know you don't like me moving, but I'll be done soon.
That's okay.
All right. All right. So just finding a comfortable place to sit or lay down. Just placing your feet on the earth. I'm going to find a comfortable place too. Just taking a nice deep breath. And exhaling from the mouth, just releasing any tension your body might be holding right now. And letting the breath of the horse bring you to this moment. Let the heartbeat of the horse slow down your inner pace. Let the grace of the horse fill your spirit with gratitude. Let the stillness of the horse take you out of the race. Let the generous soul of the horse encourage you to forgive Let the strength of the horse remind you to live. Let the courage of the horse help you look beyond your fear. Let the wisdom of the horse bring you a mind that is clear. Let the loyalty of the horse help you be a good friend. Let the love of the horse live in your heart and never end. Let the beauty of the horse inspire you to create. Let the spirit of the horse become your inner soul's fate. Let the soul of the horse guide you to a new start. Let the eyes of the horse lead you right to your heart. Let's take another deep breath. Releasing tension. Oh, someone else just took a deep breath with us. Just lower your shoulders away from your ears. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here, and we'll leave that on that quiet note. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll have this up on recording shortly. Fotini,
Thank you.
and thank you, Herd. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.